For millions of viewers, Joyce DeWitt will always be remembered as the confident, sharp-witted Janet Wood from the hit show Three's Company, a woman who made laughter feel effortless and life seem light. However, behind that familiar smile was a narrative few truly knew. Fame arrived with the force of a tidal wave, but it brought with it an underlying tide of isolation, professional rejection, and years of quiet struggle that persisted long after the studio lights were extinguished. At 76, Joyce's life story reads less like a shimmering Hollywood fairy tale and more like a poignant, heartbreaking reminder of how cold and unforgiving the spotlight can become once the public's attention begins to drift. This is far more than a simple retrospective of a sitcom star. It is the untold emotional odyssey of a woman who gifted the world endless joy while privately navigating the treacherous waters of loneliness, professional loss, and the heavy, painful silence that often follows a career's greatest peak. The genesis of the show was a high-stakes gamble that began in 1976 when ABC's programming chief, Fred Silverman, sought a spark to ignite the network's ratings. He looked toward a modest British sitcom called Man About the House, a premise involving two single women sharing an apartment with a single man that had been deemed far too scandalous by every other major American network. The project underwent a grueling evolution, nearly collapsing under an initial script that was stylish but hollow. It wasn't until Larry Gelbart and Gary Markowitz infused the story with relatability and warmth, turning the characters into young people scraping by out of necessity rather than just rebellion, that the soul of the show was born. The casting process was equally fraught. The character of Chrissy Snow remained a vacuum until Silverman, working late into the night, discovered Suzanne Summers on an old audition tape. His gut instinct to cast her, combined with his firm refusal to replace John Ritter despite executive nerves over his exaggerated physical comedy, created a lightning-in-a-bottle trio that would dominate television for years to come. As the series climbed the charts, Joyce DeWitt emerged as the production's moral compass, demonstrating an unwavering integrity that often put her at odds with powerful producers. She famously refused to deliver lines that she felt compromised Janet Wood's decency, and when the network attempted to backtrack on a promised salary increase, she simply refused to report for work, proving that for her, respect and trust were far more valuable than a paycheck. This era of success was a whirlwind of record-breaking ratings and cultural saturation, yet it was shadowed by a growing controversy over the show's Jiggle TV reputation. A pivotal 1978 Newsweek cover, which featured the cast in provocative poses they hadn't fully consented to, created a lasting rift. Joyce and John were devastated to see their character-driven comedy marketed primarily through sex appeal. This external pressure cracked the foundation of the cast's unity, setting the stage for the infamous contract disputes of 1980. The internal collapse of the show was triggered by a heartbreaking lack of parity. While John Ritter earned a staggering six-figure salary, Joyce and Suzanne were paid only a fraction of that amount. When Suzanne Summers, supported by her husband Alan Hamill, attempted to negotiate for equal pay, the network decided to use her as a warning to the rest of the industry. Instead of a fair negotiation, she was subjected to a brutal period of isolation, filming her scenes on a separate stage, cut off from her friends, and eventually being written out entirely. This cold corporate maneuvering didn't just hurt Suzanne, it wounded the show's chemistry beyond repair. Replacements like Priscilla Barnes were brought in to fill the void, but the atmosphere had become rigid and joyless. The final betrayal occurred when Joyce accidentally discovered secret auditions for a spin-off, Three's a Crowd, realizing that the show was ending and her longtime partner, John Ritter, had kept the news from her. It wasn't until decades later, through a final, tearful phone call of forgiveness from Ritter to Summers just weeks before his sudden death, that the wounds of the past finally began to heal. Today, Joyce DeWitt looks back on the legacy of Three's Company at Prestige Buzz not with bitterness, but with a deep appreciation for the fans who found a home in the trio's friendship. If you want to see more deep dives into the hidden histories of television's golden era, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification here at Prestige Buzz so you never miss an update.